It's Monday, May 18th, 2026. The postseason is over for the Detroit Pistons, but the Knee Jerks podcast will go on. And that means it's time for the Knee Jerks podcast with Eno, Nick, and Big Al. I am the Big Al of the equation, Al Beaton, longtime Detroit-based podcaster. Joining me, as always, are my partners in crime. First off, it's our West Coast correspondent, Nick Milanovich. How's things, Nick?
Doing well over here. Now that the Pistons season is over, I'm going to try and figure out how to avoid the World Cup coming up in about a month.
That's right. You're a host city, correct, where you're at?
That's right. That's right.
Oh, boy.
So.
All right, up next, we have kind of a time frame here, and it's honestly it's going to be a shorter show tonight as well. It's going to be strictly Pistons for the most part, and of course is the man knows a lot of things about a lot of things, who wrote about the Pistons' loss today, about their Game 7, and a very disappointing Game 7, which we'll take a deep dive into shortly. That, of course, is Greg Eno of the Greg Eno Substack, which I highly suggest you subscribe to. Greg, how are things in Southeast Michigan?
You know, every time I hear you say the Greg Eno Substack, I keep expecting you to say the Greg Eno Experience, which I think sounds a lot better than the Greg Eno Substack, quite frankly. But I am here. Thank you for the introduction, Big Al. GregEno.substack.com is the aforementioned Substack. Please subscribe. I'll be in your inbox every Monday for free, so I would appreciate if you did that. As Al said, I wrote about the Pistons. Why wouldn't I write about the Pistons? And I did a piece on Game 7, but how it doesn't really change, I don't think, what they have to do going forward. Also, follow me on X, at Greg Eno. Follow the Knee Jerks on X, at the Knee Jerks. Want me to get right into City, then, or want to do the birthday question?
Let's do the birthday question and include Siddy.
Well, Siddy Hall is here. You know, it's funny. Al, you said that the Pistons postseason is over with.
Mm-hmm.
But what's also over with is Siddy's 3-show streak. It's going to come to an end tonight. April 20th, May 4th, and May 18th. After this, the streak is over, unfortunately, as we promised.
That's a record for this podcast, period, of having a
It is.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's been an honor.
And we promised you some Siddy Hall stuff throughout the playoffs as long as the Pistons survived. And unfortunately, we've come to that end right now, but that's all right. We have another show with him and coming up in a couple of seconds. We're going to talk in Pistons deep dive, as Al says. But before we get into any of that, we're going to play a game we like to call Whose Birthday Is It, Maestro? Everybody knows how we play this game by now. I give Al and Nick, and in this case, Siddy, a clue or three of an individual whose birthday it is today in the world of sports. And if one of those gentlemen can correctly guess this person within the first 2 clues, he'll receive a free pair of Florsheim shoes. Florsheim shoes is up for grabs.
Is that next to Alvin the Hatter or whatever it used to be called?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, this person was born on this date in 1946, so he's a nice round 80 years. I can't believe this person's 80 years old today, but he is. Made his name in the world of baseball, Hall of Famer. Played for 4 franchises. Although he played for one of them twice. He started and ended his career with the same franchise, but in between made quite a name for himself with some other franchises as well. One of the most renowned hitters of all time, certainly in the playoffs.
80 years old today.
Yep.
And renowned in the playoffs. Oh, good Lord.
Someone else just turned 80 for music fans. Robert Fripp. Fripp.
Oh, my.
Fripp and Eno. Fripp and Brian Eno did some good stuff together.
Yes. I'm going to take a wild guess, unless you guys want to go first.
No,
go ahead. Guess first.
That would be, I don't know, did Reggie Jackson end his career in Oakland?
Reggie Jackson did, and he's correct. The Florsheim shoes are on the way to Brazil.
All right. I don't remember him ending his career in Oakland.
No, I don't either.
1987 when he was 41. Yes, he played one last year with the A's in Oakland. I'm surprised. I can kind of see where you would not think of that necessarily, but what a lot of people probably don't remember is Reggie as an Oriole. 1976, 1 year with the Orioles. He got traded just like right after spring training. I think it was. I want to say that Ken Holtzman might have been in that trade. It was a multiplayer trade. I think Holtzman was involved in that. But yeah, he went to or Lindblad. I'm not sure. But anyways, he went to the Orioles for 1 year and then became a free agent and of course signed with the Yankees and so forth. But Reggie's 80 today. Can you believe it? An 80-year-old Reggie Jackson.
He had a huge impact on that era. I have a Reggie Jackson story. I went to a Tiger game, a day game, and when he was with the A's, and I brought all my baseball cards. We had box seats in front of the on-deck circle, visitor side. And so I showed up with all my baseball cards. I was leaning against the railing. Here came Reggie, all these people behind me. I was the first person. He grabbed my card and pen. He was the first person. And I saw him doing this and kind of pausing. Then he handed it back to me. And I turned and ran and looked.
Right.
And the ink didn't work.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
He was trying to get the ink to work.
Oh, that's horrible.
And I went home and I put the card under a light to follow the indention, And I followed it with ink and it was just scribble.
Oh no! You must have been 10 years old, or 9 or 10 years old at the time, or something.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, about 9 or 10. I got about 10, I guess.
God,
I can see Siddy's headstone now. The ink didn't work.
Oh, that's
my life.
That's a toughie.
Oh man,
that's a toughie.
Anyway,
Funny sitting home some bull tips. So there you go. Yeah.
Thank you. More shoes.
Yes. Well, guys, we have a lot to cover. I mean, the Pistons season is over, so this is kind of a recap of what was a very up and down series, and also a post-mortem on what's definitely was a fun season. Ended in disappointment, but realistically, they wildly overachieved an hour ahead of schedule. Despite there's still a lot of doomsayers out there, which we will get into. But Greg, I'll let you take the lead, and we'll go with figure out where you want to start. Shall we start with Game 7? Start with the series. Floor is yours.
Well, yeah, I think that when we made this commitment to having Siddy on, we thought we would either be talking strictly in the past or maybe also looking ahead to the future. We did that last time. We looked in the past about the Magic series and looked ahead to the Cavs. So obviously, there's nothing to look ahead to right now, playoff wise. So I guess what I would just this is the matchup that Siddy you wanted to see. Obviously, it didn't work out the way we all wanted it to. But was there anything, as you look at the whole 7 games as a whole, not taking in games individually, but as a whole, did this series play out the way you thought it might, or was there something about the series as a whole that surprised you?
Well, I'm not smart enough to know how things are going to play out. I'm just sitting there trying to enjoy the action. First of all, I thought this series deserved a title. I thought it should have been called the Cedar Point series. The Battle of Cedar Point was won by, the team from Ohio retained kind of like the brown jug,
Right.
So the team from Ohio kept to their amusement park. I guess we still have Boblo. And
that's a blast of the past.
Do we?
No, actually, Boblo no longer exists. It's like become a development of big homes.
Edgewater Park.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So anyway, I don't know where to start. We had a 7-game series. It was hard fought. Well,
let me ask you this first, Siddy. Were you surprised at the effort in Game 7? Because I don't think anybody expected them to get blown out by 31.
Yeah, I mean, how do you expect that? Of course not.
Yeah.
It almost looked like it was like preordained, and we were like silly to even believe that we had a chance. The way they got, smacked around, and we haven't seen that all year. The Pistons never get blown out. Even games where they fall far behind, they come back and try to make it interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you a stat description of what happened. You've heard me talk about, this 20-point advantage. If you have a 20-point shooting advantage, you're going to end your winning percentage is above 99%. That's what happened. But another thing happened too, like a statistical truism, is that if you shoot the ball better than your opponents and you take more shots than your opponents, you're going to win every game. It's
Right.
mathematically impossible to lose when you do all of that. Well, last night, Cleveland had the 20-point advantage in shooting differential, and they took more shots. So that's almost like a statistical, proof of an annihilation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They won at everything. There's nothing that Detroit did well. Looking back at how that game opened, there were some bad signs at the beginning. A couple of small plays. Remember, Cade threw like this quick underhand looping pass to maybe it was a Sarr, and should have been an easy layup or dunk, and he was going out of bounds, trying to save it, lost opportunity for an easy basket. Next possession was an alley-oop to a Sarr. Passed just a little bit off, and he threw it behind his head, caught the back iron, and they were blowing easy scoring chances.
Yes, they were.
But the thing I noticed early, and it was something that was dogging Detroit the whole series, kind of the under-the-radar MVP of the series, I thought, was Max Strus. He was the shooting hero in Game 5, and he was hounding Cade the entire series.
Yeah, he was.
Just making him work, bringing the ball up. Do you remember that one game the Pistons kept screwing up their inbounding?
Yes.
One pass hit the backboard.
Right.
And another time Max picked Cade's pocket.
Sure.
And Cade did the hard
Game 3
snappy head thing, trying to get. I think that was Game 5, right, when it got away from them.
Well, there was a Game 3 when Strus just stole the inbounds pass, just flat out stole it. Yeah.
But anyway, the games kind of blurred together. But Max Strus was in, Cade Cunningham's dreams at night, because he was hounding him. And early in Game 7, it seemed like every Piston possession, Cade had the ball out near the logo with like 12 on the clock, 10 on the clock. Couldn't get the offense functioning, couldn't get the first pass. And they ended up, just settling for late in the shot clock.
Right.
Tough shooting.
No percentage shot,
5 minutes into the game, they had 2 buckets, both by Dennis Jenkins. That was it. I mean, they couldn't get it going. And
back to your. I'm glad you brought that up about Strus, because that's a sharp observation. But as the series went on, I was raving about Cade after the Magic series because of what he did in certainly the last 3 games of that series for sure. It seemed to me, and this is what I wrote in the piece today, and this is not anything that I came up with on my own. This is pretty obvious stuff, but the way that he was worn down, and whether it wasn't just Strus, but the way that Cade, I thought, looked worse and worse as the series went on. And I don't know if that was because in retrospect he came back too soon from the collapsed lung, or if it was indeed the Cavaliers' defensive effort. But as that series went on, I thought he looked more and more tired. And by Game 7, he certainly looked like a player that was just a shell of himself.
I agree. I think he was tired. We can only speculate, but they also had Dean Wade on him, a guy who takes like 2 shots a game. He's a big guy. Him and Strus are both big guys that can measure up to Cade, play physical with him, and they were making Cade work the whole 96 feet.
Right.
And I think he was tired. He was making bad Cade's turnover prone, but he was worse than normal, making kind of mindless turnovers almost, the kind you make when you're tired. So exactly. I agree with your theory. I will buy into that. But hopefully, Cade's probably not going to say anything. But hey, they need another ball handler, right?
Well, the other thing too is what went hand in hand with Cade getting tired, unfortunately, was the Tobias Harris bubble burst, and I suspected that was going to happen. I didn't think the Orlando thing was sustainable for another series. And indeed, as that Cavs series went on, Tobias shrunk and got smaller and smaller and smaller, missed shot after shot. A lot of them off the front rim, by the way. His patented, fadeaway jump shots were hitting the front of the rim. I'm not sure if that was an indication that he was tired, but he's a 33-year-old guy, and I thought that it was a bad combination that when Cade went south, so did Tobias.
Well, yeah, Cade was being, the media was overstating his contribution. He was scoring like 21 a game. It means he was taking a lot of shots.
Very inefficiently, though, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, efficiency is one thing, taking a lot of shots is another. He was doing pretty decently, but nothing that unusual. He had the big game 7, right, against Orlando. So that was him and Cade together. They teamed up. That was a massive game.
Tobias at 30, yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of normal, a normal Tobias performance. He's up and down. This whole year, I thought he was off on his threes. Not a knockdown shooter. He gets a lot of open looks. His bread and butter is the 2, right? Kind of from the block.
Sure.
He backs his guy down.
He's got his spots,
That disappeared in those last few games.
Yes.
You weren't seeing much of that go down. But let's talk about Jalen Duren.
Oh,
do we have to?
Yeah. Let me go back to my stats. I talk a lot about impact scoring nights.
Yeah.
And I mentioned before, this year, I place a lot of importance on this number. He was 4th in the league in impact scoring nights. It was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 49, Durant, 46, Jokic, I think, was 42, Jalen Duren, 39.
Well, just to stop you for a second, what is considered an impact scoring night?
Well, that would be it's a comparison of points versus shots taken. It does not require scoring a lot of points. You can come in and you can do it on as few as 3 shots. If you come in and you're knocking down your threes and you go back to the bench, that can qualify.
So it's more of an efficiency stat, in other words.
Starts with you cannot do it without efficiency.
Right.
He's close to a 70% shooter. This stat is great because it gives a lot of credit to those guys who take 5, 8, 10, or 12 shots. They can reach it. No problem. It's not about being the leading scorer. So during all season, he was, well, I want to talk about the end of the season. His final 18 games, he had 15 impact scoring games, 15 out of 18, including 11 in a row. That's just completely off the charts. The best for an entire season, the best in NBA history is like 57 by Kevin Durant. So 2 out of 3 games. Nobody reaches 50. Usually the top guys are like mid 40s. So figure like half the time, a little bit more than half the time, you're at the top level. So Duren had 39, I believe, in 70 games, if I'm not mistaken. So he's in that group. In the 14 playoff games, take a guess how many impact scoring games he had.
I would say 0.
0.
You are correct. It was a goose egg.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's insane.
He went from 15 out of the final 18 games to 0 out of 14. This is like blowing my mind. I can't comprehend this.
Right. Let's go to Nick Milanovich next year with what you got for Siddy.
Well, let me a couple things. Let me just go on with the Jalen Duren thing. Is it that the playoff teams played him differently than whatever the teams during the regular season? Because the regular season, he could play a good team, or he could play some bottom feeders too. So,
well, obviously in the playoffs, the other team has a lot more time to think about strategy compared to the playing a different team every other night. When I was watching Duren this year, the thing I kept scratching my head about, and I was just bewildered about, is just how over and over and over he was grabbing traffic rebounds. So, obviously he's playing against different personnel. He'd have one guy in front of him, one guy behind him, some rebound like 5 or 7 feet from the basket on the baseline. Everybody's going up over and over. The guy coming down with it was Jalen Duren. He was uncanny. He had a knack for it. And then in the playoffs, Orlando was ready for him with Banchero and Carter, a couple of physical guys. And then Cleveland has, the 2 string beans with Mobley and Jared Allen. He couldn't deal with their height. but he was playing against different types of players. It was just he disappeared. They neutralized him. So it's a conundrum, and it's going to be a really difficult thing for Trajan to think about, and when considering money,
right?
How much to offer, and are we looking into the future? Who is Jalen Duren exactly?
Go ahead, Nick.
The one argument with, I don't know, I kind of go back and forth with Duren is he's still only 22 also.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a long way to go in his career. Just because he had like a lousy playoffs now, the question is, can he learn from that? Is it worth taking a chance? He's going to get a big contract no matter what. Whether he gets a max deal or not.
They're going to have to cough up money. I mean, there's maybe there's a blessing in disguise here. Maybe they're going to be able to bring his money down a little bit to something that's not, like max level stuff. But well, let's see what let's see how the awards go out too. If he's named a top 3, if he makes third team All NBA, I had him second team. I was listening to Bill Simmons' podcast. He had him second team. So if the voters are kind of like us, the Pistons are going to have to factor that into the budget. But yeah, I kind of agree with you, Nick. But the thing is, when you think about Duren, who does he kind of resemble? We've asked this question before, and we were talking about guys like Sean Kemp and kind of daydreaming. But the more and more I look at it, it's Karl Malone. But Karl Malone played in a different era where you could lob the ball in and set up on the block. And Karl Malone was permitted to shoot mid-range jumpers at his mid-40s percentage or whatever it was. It was a different era, So how is Jalen going to function in 2026 or 27 in the future with a different game? He's got a pretty good shooting stroke. He shoots, his free throws are close to 80. Because of that, and he's relatively mobile, maybe he can add wrinkles to his game that will allow him to, not just function, but dominate. But everything seems riskier now, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
No, I was just going to say that it as I'm listening to you guys talk about Duren, it's dawning on me that depending on which way you look at this thing, you could either look at it as this could have come at a worse time, this performance, because of the contract, or it could have come at a better time because of the contract, depending on how you look at it. And the reason I say that is because Trajan has now, maybe now even though to Nick's point, Jalen's only 22, that was such a rotten, we're not talking just a few games, 14 games. Pistons played 14 playoff games. Siddy mentioned the goose egg on the impact scoring nights. But I can't help but think that maybe Trajan is I wouldn't say relieved that this happened, but maybe this makes his decision about what to do easier. We're thinking it makes it harder. I'm wondering if it makes it easier.
Well, you can leverage it, and trying to, convince Jalen's team to be a little bit more team friendly and think about your future teammates. You want to win a championship, right? But what about Beef Stew? I mean, he disappeared too.
Yeah, sure.
That was going to be
He might have been hurt.
question.
He might have been hurt,
So,
I think.
I have a feeling, I think his knees were acting up again, which is something else that the Pistons have to factor into any future contract with him.
He had no lift. He had that one game against the Magic where he blocked like 8 shots, but after he had no lift. He couldn't. He was like me out there trying to get a rebound. He could not.
You have more lift. You have more lift, Greg.
Yeah.
I mean, that was bad.
There is a little bit of redundancy with those two guys. It seemed to work, the 82-game schedule. We had this depth. We always had one of them on the floor. It worked. But if Jalen's, let's say, I took a look at Reddit, on the Reddit Pistons page, and somebody made the comment, hey, how about $100 million over 3 years? And everyone seemed to kind of agree, yeah, that seems about right. We're not going to go 4 years. We're going 3. Same money as Şengün and some of these other guys. But $33 million plus 15 for Beef. That's 48.
Right.
You know, that's 1/3 of the cap almost. And then there's Paul Reed, who I forget what I want to say he makes 5. I think he's on the books for 1 more year, partially guaranteed. It's a lot of money to be tied up in one position. So kind of makes me wonder, you know, if you do have to consider trade chips, maybe it's beef stew. You know, as hard as it is, he's kind of
he's like 16 million a year. It's a very tradable deal, and it would probably have to be with any big money deal.
Damaged goods, unless he's damaged goods. You know,
he's tough to give up, though. He's one of those guys. Like the moment you give him up, you're like, you know, he was nice to have around. He brought that toughness, and we always had the toughest guy.
Yeah, we get. You know, I think in Detroit we get too caught up in that whole toughness thing and the grit. That was another thing I wrote about in today's. Fans in Detroit get so enamored with toughness and grit, and they fall in love with some of these players that are far from being Hall of Fame guys. This is in every sport.
Yeah,
and I think speaking of Paul in that category, let's go to Big Al. What you got for Siddy Hall?
Well, let me. I will say first about Duren. It came. The Athletic reported today. This is beat writing, as a matter of fact, said that his league sources say that Duren has pretty much lost all leverage in contract talks. So a max is going to be out of the question, but he's still going to make significant money. I know, probably 25, maybe 30. I think a max would be like 35 or something like that. But it was at 30% of the salary cap. So
the max
that's the decision.
That's going to change, I think, if he gets an All-Star award. You know,
right? Exactly. That was brought up as well. If he does end up third-team All-NBA, which is very possible, it could be even more.
I hate that third-team guys get the max. You know, that's what happened with John Wall many years ago in Washington. He clearly was not a top 15 player, but they needed a point guard. Some point guard had to get thrown onto the third team. It was him. He was never anywhere close to being that guy. Washington gave him the money, you know, and then he just became a problem. You know, you're just trying to unload the deal. You got to pay people to take it. And, you know, once you start paying out that big money, I mean, look at the teams right now who are content. You know, Oklahoma City won the championship with young guys. Boston won before everybody's contracts got enormous. Golden State started winning when they had guys under cheaper deals. San Antonio has guys on cheaper deals. It seems like that's the way it works now. You got to do it. If you know, you can't pay like Orlando. You can't pay 5 guys $40 million each, or $35 million each. That doesn't work. And so there is some pressure here for Detroit to get this done soon and try to make a run while they have Ausar Thompson's under a cheap deal, relatively. I think he's making 9 or 10. And then, you know, and again, Jalen, if he gets that max, yikes, that make things hard.
Yeah, so, and you bring up Ausar, which is worth bringing up because I guess he's become extension eligible. So, so they got to make a decision on him.
Much? Yeah, what's he worth? You know, I mean, what is he worth? I mean, he's got to be worth at least 20
easily. Because you could argue he was probably their second best player in the Cleveland series just on his defense alone. And that's the question, though. How valuable is a one-dimensional player in today's NBA? Even you're talking about a guy who's obviously going to be a defensive player of the year candidate every year he's in the league. He's that damn good.
Well,
how much do you want to invest in a non-shooter?
I'm sorry, dude. I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about him knocking down that 3 just before halftime. And we're like, and then in the third quarter, they tried to do the same thing, and he shot an air ball. You know, but here, I'll tell you one. Again, I don't mean to digress. I'm sorry. I am.
No, we got plenty of time. Digress away.
One thing I had a bad feeling about Game 7 is when he ran over Sam Merrill. With remember he had that charging call and Merrill was like picking.
Oh, it was a thing of beauty, actually.
You're a mean guy, Nick. My God,
I wish they would do that in golf. Then I would actually play the game.
Worst collisions I've ever seen on an NBA floor. I mean, he lowered the shoulder into the poor guy. And it occurred to me, man, like the Cleveland, his teammates had to have looked at that and said, oh, look at Sam. He's our littlest guy. You know, he's the littlest guy on the team, taking a hit, sacrificing his body for us. That had to have inspired the team a little bit. And then he started knocking down threes. You know, he had a huge scoring night. He had 23 points on like 12 shots.
You know, if you look at that play, and you know, obviously Asar was going 100 miles an hour downhill, but if you look at Merrill, and I looked at that play a couple times, Merrill's feet were moving before he was not set. Now, the collision itself was brutal, like you said, and I can see why they called the offensive foul, but going by, if you're going to, by the book, that was not an offensive foul. That was a block because Merrill was moving.
By the book.
Well, I'm just telling you.
I look at it this way, Greg. If your
moving.
Shoulders are square, then you're there. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not saying it was a horrible call by any stretch. I'm just saying that, you know, when I watched that, I said, well, his feet were moving, but Asar was just going so fast that he was out of control for sure.
Yeah. Well, if I were Merrill and if I were laying there collecting my teeth and I looked up and the referee's like pointing at me for the foul,
right?
I would have.
No, I get it. I get it. No, I get it. I really do.
Yeah, he was laying there like he was checking for blood. He had gotten hit so hard.
But that was kind of satisfying, though, to see that kid get knocked out. I don't like white basketball players to begin with, especially guys with three-point shots like that. I don't like them either. That's why I don't like Strus. I respect Strus, but I don't like him.
They both destroyed. You know, Cleveland went down to their 8-man rotation. That's what happens a lot. And again, there's one of the questions about
three white guys on the bench.
If you go down to an 8-man rotation, which a lot of these teams do, they shorten their bench to 8, maybe 9 guys.
Right.
And the Pistons went all the way down to 13. Sasser and Paul Reed. That means players 12 and 13 on the roster got big minutes.
Well, they're showing how desperate they were for offense, really.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that, because one of the things you said, if I remember correctly, 2 weeks ago when we previewed this series was that you liked the Pistons' depth, and I did too. And again, as I wrote today, the only time I really saw that depth really make a difference was in Game 6. Other than that, I thought that the depth, as it turned out, didn't really prove to be that much of an advantage for the Pistons. And even though they got some good minutes, like you said, from LeVert and from some of these other guys in spurts, as a whole, I thought the depth was not a factor other than Game 6.
LeVert had the one game. Paul Reed, you know, he played well.
Yeah.
But yeah, they abandoned Holland. Well, the Piston bench is like a unit. And that's what comes back to my question, about, a lot of games you look at the Pistons and you look at the starters, the plus minus, look at the bench and the plus minus, and you could see which unit was getting it done. It would be Holland, Javonte Green, Beef Stew, whoever else was in that group that night. It was very effective in the regular season. That's a big part of why they won 60. Because our guys, 6 through 10 or 11 were better than their guys 6 through 11. But our 6 through 11 or 6 through 13 were playing their 6 through 8. So, so in basketball over the 82 game schedule, having that nice bench was super beneficial. But when you're in a playoff game, are those guys actually going to play against the other team's starters or most of their starters? In the regular season games, it doesn't really work that way.
Right.
So that's kind of the conundrum. You're trying to get as much talent on the floor into those 5 positions, and the Pistons don't have that. They basically have Cade and Duran and a bunch of bench players. And that includes Duncan Robinson and these guys. Right. They're kind of like borderline. They're rotation guys.
Right, right. Bench players may be too strong, but rotation guys.
Well, while we're talking about bench guys, let me ask you: did you? We saw a lot of Danis Jenkins as the lead ball handler and Cade playing off ball. Did you like seeing Cade off ball more like that?
Well, I like having two ball handlers on the floor. I mean, they got it. I think that's kind of giving Cade a rest. Jenkins is the only other guy that can do that. I like Dennis Jenkins. I don't know what it's worth, but I was looking at the stats today. You know, you can go to NBA.com and you can look at two players together. You know, how well the defensive rating, offensive rating when they're playing together. 3-man units, 4-man units, 5-man units. All the worst units had Dennis Jenkins in the lineups. I don't know if that's really his fault. I'm not a big fan of plus minus. I don't know how much I trust it when it's talking about one individual player. But that's all we got,
Yeah.
So so it's kind of a yes and a no. Yeah, I like that there's a ball handler out there with Cade. Is Dennis the answer? I guess.
I agree with you there. Yeah, he's great if he was the fourth guard or something like that.
He's like your third stringer, I guess. The backup. So if someone gets hurt, you throw him in. He's a legitimate guy. But yeah, we leaned on him hard. And
the only time I felt good about that Game 7 was when Danis hit that 3-pointer to put them ahead 3-2. That's the last time I felt good about that game.
Yeah, I mean, he started out okay. Here was their offense. I'm looking. So anyway, by the way, just to tell you, impact scoring nights just for that last series. Duncan Robinson had 4. Paul Reed had 3.
This is just the Cleveland series?
Just the Cleveland series.
Okay.
Cade had 2. And the rest of the team had 1.
Wow.
Says volumes about the offensive struggles. Yeah.
Karis LeVert, Game 5.
How many did Mitchell have, I wonder, I bet?
Mitchell, just a couple.
Game
even like
4,
last
obviously.
night, he didn't go nuts. In fact, if you had shown me if you had only shown me last night's box and said, hey, here's James Harden and here is Mitchell's numbers, what do you think? I'm like, probably won.
Right.
We probably, Harden was cold. Mitchell, he made a lot of nice plays, but it was not an impact scoring night. Just looking at the team, big, super massive scoring nights. There were 2 in the whole series. It was last night, Sam Merrill, and Game 5, Max Strus. Those were the only ones, both teams. So Strus had 2 in total. Harden had 2. Schroeder had 1. That's 5. Merrill, just the 1. Mitchell, 2. Jared Allen, 2. Mobley, 0. So, they didn't overwhelm us with that. Yeah. But the one thing, though, that did come through in both series combined, I told you the Pistons' bread and butter is getting extra shots. And Orlando took more shots than the Pistons. Detroit did take more than Cleveland, but it wasn't overwhelming. So kind of part of their bread and butter disappeared, and that just left you with a team that had to shoot the ball better than their opponents. And we know from watching Detroit all year, they're just average at shooting the ball.
Yeah, average at best. Let's go to Nick Milanovich again with Nick. What you got for City?
It's just about probably the only other thing I was thinking about. We sort of mentioned it a second ago. Is Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert. Usually during the season, if I heard LeVert was in the game, I was just gritting my teeth. And, to me, he was awful during the season. But he seemed to show up a little bit for the playoffs. Much more.
Let me mention my little pet stats. Karis LeVert, the good old impact scoring nights, for the entire year, I believe he had 6. Okay. And the last one was on the 31st game of the year. So he went the final 50 games without producing a single big night in the scoring column. And then he had the one, against Cleveland. And then, JB started riding him hard to see if he could squeeze more out of him. But, Karis LeVert, he's an alpha dog. And so what happened in the first like 5 years of his career, he turned into like this instant heat off the bench, sixth man type. Then, he had cancer, and he managed to come back from that. When he was with Indiana, he kind of got bounced around a little bit because of all those trades with Brooklyn and bringing in James Harden. So LeVert was sacrificed. But then he came down with cancer. He was diagnosed with cancer. And since that time, I guess it's a miracle that he was able to continue his career, but he's never been the same guy. But in his mind, he is. So anytime he makes a basket, he does a heat check.
Right. I noticed that. Yeah. I noticed that.
He's just not that guy.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Well, he's on the books for one more year, by the way, $14 million.
Okay.
Well, him and Duncan Robinson as well. And
yeah, Duncan 2 more years. We're okay with that.
I thought he had a 2.
2 years, and I believe they are both partially guaranteed. So you can expect that he'll be back.
I really thought the Pistons missed Duncan in Game 5. I thought that they would be able to get by okay without him. But in retrospect, looking at that game, I'm not saying that he was the difference maker. That had they had him, they would have won. But I just got the impression that they really missed him in Game 5, and maybe that's because he had such a good Game 6.
Well, he's like these guys like Luke Kennard. These guys, they don't score a lot, but the other team always marks them. You have to.
You have to go.
Yeah, you got to go. Like I noticed, like Cade last night, he had an easy basket. He dribbled to his left, shot about a 10 or 12 footer. He just had to shoot it over the guy guarding him. And like, where was the help? There was no help. There was a big empty space on the floor because Duncan Robinson was on the same side of the floor behind the 3-point line, and Max Strus was in his shirt. So Max Strus wasn't even turning to look at the ball. Right. He was just watching, keeping an eye on Duncan Robinson. So that opened up the floor.
Right.
So Duncan's the only guy who can do that.
But you know what? The Pistons, conversely, Siddy, to me, I'm just a naked eye kind of a guy, but I didn't seem like that the Pistons did a very good job, and they haven't done it. They haven't. That's been another Achilles heel of their game defensively, is defending the perimeter. And I thought there were way too many open looks from Merrill, Strus, and even Dean Wade at times. I thought there were even Mitchell. I mean, everyone, Schroeder, you name it, Harden, everybody had, to me, too many good looks from 3. And I don't know if that's a defensive breakdown thing or what. But Merrill, if I see Merrill hit one more wide open 3 from the corner, I'm going to barf.
Well, why is a guy his size in the league? I mean, he's one of the purest shooters in the game, right? There are not many people in this world at his size who can play in the NBA. I mean, so hats off to him. There's very little room in the NBA now for small players. Right. They want guys that can play defense. You got to be a certain size, bring a certain physicality to the floor so you can rotate, deal with big men and mismatches, etc. So those guys are a dying breed. So, hats off to Sam having a massive contribution after getting run over by a freight train.
Right.
So I got nothing against him. But yeah, everything fell apart, man. Everything fell apart.
But overall, I just think that I thought the perimeter, what I'm trying to say is that forget Merrill by himself. I thought the overall perimeter defense by the Pistons was just lacking. They were just too many good looks, and the Cavaliers shoot the 3 too well. That's why I wonder how they would have done against the Celtics, but we'll never know, of course. But I thought the look that the Cavs had way too good.
I mean, you got to look at the tape again to figure that out. But the floor got really open. We were watching Jared Allen was going down the lane with tomahawk dunks, and Mobley was making drives, and the defense got spread out. JB was using unusual combinations of players. The communication might be more difficult, trying to keep everybody on a string. Maybe that's part of it. I'm not sure, but It was total domination. We saw I don't even know if the score indicated how dominant it was.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think you can make a case that the
could have been
old
45.
joke about it was, yeah, right. 125-94 in a game where the game was not as close as the score indicated. I agree. Let's shift now and talk about the future. Trajan Langdon, as we've hinted at in this discussion, has a lot of decisions to make, not just with Jalen Duren, but other things he needs to do. If you had a wish list, Siddy Hall, what would that wish list include for the offseason?
The number one guy I wish the Pistons would get is Tyler Hero from Miami.
Okay.
Miami, he is under contract for one more year. So if Miami, there's been speculation about them. Are they what are they? A buyer, a seller? They're kind of they've been straddling that 500 record for a few years, and some people believe maybe they're ready to be a seller. Hero, so maybe that makes Tyler available since he's only got 1 year left, and he's going to require to be re-signed for a lot of money. A team like Detroit might make that gamble and say, sure, we'll take him on. We'll take the risk that he could leave after a year, and we'll throw you, a couple of young guys, draft picks, whatever it is you're looking for. Maybe there could be something there. And they made a deal last year with, Duncan Robinson and Fontecchio. So maybe that means that Pat Riley and Trajan have a smooth relationship. So that would be my guy. I'm a big Tyler Hero fan. He's tall. He's not known as being a great defender, but he's tall enough that he's not going to get caught in major mismatches. And he's a hell of a shooter, and Detroit needs that badly.
But beyond that, so would you look at, would Hero be the guy that's the quote unquote Robin to Cade's Batman, or is that just, or is he not good enough to be that? He's
a stud. Tyler Hero's awesome. Last year, when I made my all NBA teams, that third team, there are always a lot of candidates that are good enough to be on it, and he was one. I mean, he's a major big time sniper. Any Piston fan who watches every game will remember. I mean, he had one game he came into the Little Caesars Arena and just single handedly brought Miami back, knocking down.
I remember that. Yeah,
threes. In 2 minutes or something.
Yeah, I remember that.
Just dribbling and shooting. Like everybody knew he was going to shoot. Didn't matter.
Right.
He's a long, tall guy with a great stroke. This year he was dealing with injuries. What does that mean? I don't know. He didn't have much of an impact this year. Maybe that lowers his trade value slightly. Right. But I would go after him. We need scoring. We need a ball handler. Another free agent, unrestricted, a guy who just keeps bouncing around the league is Colin Sexton, who has ended up on the Bulls. And this guy, he used to be the backcourt mate of Darius Garland in Cleveland. Okay. He's a scoring machine. He's just a little guy. He can handle the ball. He finds his own shot. Everywhere he goes, Utah, Charlotte, doesn't matter what uniform he wears. He's a scoring machine. He's in the middle of his career. I don't know why he gets moved so much. Is his defense that bad? Is there a problem there?
Right.
He's a little bit smallish, but I don't care. I would rather have him than Sasser. I like Sasser, but Sasser can't go in there and just take 20 shots and on a regular basis if necessary and be tough to stop. So those are a couple of guys. Those are backcourt guys. They have a draft pick at 21, which I believe is the highest they were eligible for.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it went up 7 spots. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, top 20 protected.
Yeah, it was top 20 protected. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So I know before the NCAA tournament, some of the Michigan guys were slotted to go around there, but I think their value has risen. I don't know. You guys know the Michigan guys a lot better than I do, but I don't know. I mean, what are we looking for in the draft? What kind of player are we looking for? The Pistons have so many guys; it's so crowded already.
Yeah.
with 13 guys. I don't know. What did we need?
I would have loved to, like you're talking about the Michigan guys, I would have loved to have seen if Yaxel Lendenborg would have been available or around 20 or so, because he would be the perfect fit. A big guy. He's 6'11", who can shoot from three. But like you said, it looks like he's going to go in the lottery. And the other, any of the other Michigan guys are all probably either not a good fit because they aren't shooters, like Mortes Johnson. So, I'm with you. That they need, if they're going to keep the 21st pick, it's got to be a shooter. And I hate the old, draft for need over best available player. But this, especially when you're at 21. It has to be a shooter, even if you think there might be a slightly better player available. But if you can't shoot from distance, it doesn't help the Pistons one bit.
You need to find the next Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
Think about where Maxey went. That would be a good fit. But to me, I think they need a ball handler. They got to, Cade. He needed a lot of help in that series. Cade plays defense too.
Sure.
He's down there. He helps his bigs. He likes playing defense. We got to take some of the pressure off him. Get a ball handler. But again, that's a dying breed. It used to be if you were a point guard, you were gonna play. You're gonna bounce. Remember I was saying, Killian Hayes. Someone will pick him up because that's what happens to point guards.
Yeah.
But I fail to recognize that we're in a new era where teams just say, nah, anybody can bring the ball up. Doesn't matter. We'll let our 6 foot.
We saw a lot of Asar bring the ball up, which would be crazy in that Cavaliers series, by the way.
Well, he was a legitimate ball handler before he entered the NBA. So, he's kind of the rare breed of a ball handler who can't score.
He can do everything but shoot. Exactly.
Ball handler can't score.
I'm okay with him handling. He can bring the ball up. Just to bring the ball up, make the first pass, get the offense functioning.
Right.
The Pistons were having trouble doing that against Cleveland. Like teams are, maybe in the regular season, teams don't want to expend that much energy hounding the ball, coming up the floor. But in the playoffs, they're doing it, or they were doing it against the Pistons. It was a problem. Cade's not that fast. You can stay in front of him.
Right.
He's guardable.
Right. Let's go back to Nick Milanovich talking about the future of this team. What you got, Nick, for City?
Well, here's another one that it kind of keeps coming up. Also, is the Pistons, in my opinion, have a lot of needs, and but you hear sort of fans spending the Pistons' capital, whether it's draft picks or money, like they're drunken sailors, and going after, the giant names in the league. Like so far, I've heard. Of course, you'll hear Giannis. I haven't heard that one lately. No, I have heard that one. I've heard Booker.
Available.
Yeah.
But is it worth it? What are you going to give up for him?
Let me tell you something. Giannis, as a stat guy, he's still awesome. He's awesome. He was awesome this year. He only played 30-some games. He's the same guy, but he gets hurt more frequently. There's been at least 2 years now. He keeps going down with the same. Right. I believe it's always his calf or lower leg injuries. And he's a max deal guy. But he is still a tornado. But again, he's not a shooter.
Yeah.
You just give him the ball and he goes downhill with it and beats the hell out of people and dunks. I would not be. If the Pistons were going to go after Giannis, I would say, okay, well, at what cost? What's the plan? I love Giannis. I'm a Giannis guy. You got all these superstars, Giannis, Jokic, Shea. I'm a Giannis guy. But what are you going to do? Are you going to bankrupt your entire future? There was I saw a video yesterday. There's just so many great accounts now, like on Instagram, people doing stat stuff. And this guy made this beautiful video and chart of all the players, how many draft picks were given up for Mikal Bridges? How many draft picks were given up, for Paul George when he was traded, and so on and so forth. And I think he had to go down to he had them listed by most number of picks. Number one was Paul George.
Mm-hmm.
The Oklahoma City got 6 picks plus Shea. It was a total robbery. And then, Bridges with New York is 5 picks, and Durant has been in 2 of these. And you got to keep going down. And it isn't until the 10th player on the list where you find a team that won the championship after making one of these deals. Yeah. So
how many did the Magic give up to get Bean?
4. 4 and a pick swap.
4 and a pick swap.
Yeah, 4 and a pick swap.
Yeah, and I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Because I think everybody liked that trade and said, "Yeah, Bane, that's what they need. They need a shooter." And he's in the middle of his career, and it made no impact. And he had a good year. He did what he was supposed to do. It had no impact. So why are you going to trade your whole future? And that will probably, if the Pistons are shopping, you might hold up that data to the other team and say, look, we're not going to be fools and give you 5 picks or 4 picks for whoever, you have. It's going to be something less than that. So that maybe, just speculating here. Trajan's never made a big move, right? We don't,
Yeah, it's all been around the margin.
Yeah. So, but it seems like this might be the time for it, man. And I'm curious to see what happens for sure.
Well, the name I see people really like is Trey. Was it Trey Murphy? And
Murphy.
Yeah, but he's another one. Again, that's the big swing. In other words, another one.
He's another injury-prone guy, though. Duran knocked him out 2 years ago. He set a screen, and the guy ran into a Duran screen and collapsed, and never came back for the rest of the year. So I'd be a little bit careful about him. He's a little bit fragile. Doesn't bring much muscle, but he is a good scorer. He's actually kind of similar to Hero. Same body types. A lot of efficiency. They can knock down threes in their sleep. So he seems to be on the list. I don't know if it's legit that New Orleans is trying to move him.
I saw a post about someone proposed a trade for Trey Murphy where they would give up LeVert, Holland, and firsts. Well, 2 firsts and a pick swap on a third first rounder.
Oh, I would do that.
I'd do that. Yeah.
That seems okay. Yeah, because LeVert, we already know we all agree he's expendable, and Holland, he's just kind of a rotation guy, I guess. I like him, but he's going to have a career, but I don't think he's going to be playing in all-star games.
Yeah, they have a better Holland than Thompson.
Yeah,
essentially.
Right. Yeah, you got the overlap there.
Yeah.
So, by the way, before I forget, I have a couple of notes here.
Go for it.
Oklahoma City, San Antonio starts tonight.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. What you thought about that?
I mean, this is huge. This is huge. This is the second round of a rivalry that began earlier this year. I mean, it does have a little bit of that Boston Laker kind of scent to it, something that might have legs. And it's worth noting we do have some former Pistons are on those rosters. The San Antonio, the end of their bench, it's all Pistons. It's Kelly Olynyk, Lindy Waters III, Mason Plumlee. They added late.
I remember him.
He's still in the
league. He's a good citizen.
Yeah.
And then a guy who I believe only appeared in 1 game with them, so I don't think he'll be in a playoff game. Stanley Umuji was a Spur this year. And then on the other side, Oklahoma City, of all guys who reappeared, in the NBA on such a great team. Buddy Boeheim played 4 games with Oklahoma City this year. The 4th game was against Detroit, almost like he was mocking the fans, saying, "I'm a Thunder, eat your heart out. I'm a Thunder, you're not." And so maybe we'll see Buddy.
He's going to
Buddy
start.
didn't do too much, but yeah.
Troy Weaver's going to trade for him next year. It's been a while since they can be reunited.
Right. Bring back Boeheim. Boeheim, I think, back in the day, Greg, we would say he's easy to beat up. He looks like a guy, if you ran into Buddy in an alley, maybe you would survive that one. At least our younger selves. Our younger selves. What else?
Hold on. Before we move off of Spurs Thunder, who are you picking in that series?
I like Oklahoma City. I like them before the playoffs. I think they're at their peak right now. Mm-hmm. They're healthy. They've went the whole year almost playing without Jalen Williams. Their second alpha, and they won 64 basically without him. Made relatively little contribution. Isaiah Hartenstein, their second big, next to Holmgren, he was out for a lot of the year. He seems to finally be back in form. Again, Oklahoma City being Oklahoma City, their sidekick ball handler scorer, AJ Mitchell, second-year guy. He was a second-round draft pick. That's what I'm saying. The great teams, they find space for these guys for them to develop. You look at teams like Minnesota and New York, they just choke their talent. They don't even get a chance to spread their wings. Mm-hmm. Now they've got AJ Mitchell, and then they traded for Jared McCain from Philly, a second-year ball handler who last year was the best rookie out of the gate. And then he got hurt. I don't know why Philly was trading him. Oklahoma City's they're loaded right now. This is as good as they're going to be. So if Wemby can overcome that would be impressive. But they, again, Oklahoma, going back to San Antonio, though, they got the 3 young guys. It's Wemby, Dylan Harper, Stephen Castle. I mean, the oldest of that group is Wemby at 22. So I want Oklahoma City to win because I'm afraid of what's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where San Antonio, someone texted me, they someone who doesn't follow, someone said, hey, he said, Wemby, it isn't fair. Mm-hmm. And it's true. He's just too tall. He's like a young Kareem, when Kareem was like, it wasn't fair. He was just so much better than so much taller.
Yeah, he's as tall as Chuck Nevitt and a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. But, Wemby's a little bit of a gangly young deer, he can get knocked around. So he has his here's the thing with the Spurs, because of Wemby, defensively, they lock teams down. The question is on the offensive end. If they get it going, and Wemby does get it going sometimes, they're really, really tough to beat. Mm-hmm. But they're not, consistent at that end of the floor. They got these young guys, and that's where Oklahoma City has to beat them. They got to bring in the D and lock them down. But I'm really looking forward to it. How about you guys? Who are you cheering for?
I'm not sure. I'm not a big Spurs fan, but I'm definitely not a Thunder fan. So I guess I would root for the Spurs just out of default.
Pick your poison.
Yeah, I have a little bit of SGA exhaustion right now, even though he is a 2-time MVP now. But I another one of those guys. I just don't enjoy the game he plays. The way he plays, I think. And say what you will about Wemby, but he is an entertaining player to watch. I really like watching him play.
Oh, he
so
is.
If I'm going to pick a team, I would pick the Spurs.
I have nothing against Wemby. I'm just afraid of like an 8 or 10 years of domination, So I don't want it to arrive too soon.
Yeah.
By the way,
what
the
about you, Nick?
Pistons series. Can we go back to the Pistons series?
Let's get Nick's. Well, let's get Nick's.
So you wanted my pick.
Let's get Nick's pick.
Yeah,
Here's
Nick,
my feeling about both conference finals. I hope both teams lose.
Nick hopes all 4 teams lose that are left.
Yes, I do.
All is a little bit more.
Nick's a generational hater.
We're gonna vacate the title this year.
I just want to see who flops more, Brunson or Harden.
Oh.
Well, as I sent you guys in the text last night, that which I found so spot on. I saw it on Twitter. Is that James Harden inspired a generation of your least favorite NBA players, and that is so. I mean, we're going to see it in Brunson tomorrow.
Well, his year when he was winning MVPs, man, he was just unbearable.
Yeah,
I mean, now he's kind of clownish. You can kind of laugh a little bit. But in Houston, you would just be.
JB wasn't laughing.
Yeah,
JB wasn't laughing.
Yeah. Well, I remember, there was a moment, maybe you guys remember this, but there was a game where the Rockets were playing the Lakers. And when LeBron was new to the Lakers, and at one point in that game, LeBron and all the Laker defenders put their hands behind their back and defended with their hands behind their back to make a point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, you can't defend like this when you're on the floor, James Harden, because you're going to get called for a foul.
Yeah.
And it was, so anyway, but Harden, I mean, you got to admit, I mean, one of the most greatest cathartic moments in basketball history was that Game 6 fiasco where Harden did the flop.
Yeah, and then
He was laying on the floor just watching the action.
Yeah.
Then the ball came back to him. And then, of course, they did then Cade got called for the foul.
Right.
He's like stomping around, and everyone's like, yeah, right. And then, of course, the inbound and Dean Wade slipped on.
I've been watching the NBA for 50 plus years. I've never seen a player go down like that in an NBA game like he slipped on a banana peel. That was unbelievable.
It's somewhere Rasheed Wallace was yelling, "Ball don't lie" at that moment.
That was something out of a slapstick comedy. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, the entire basketball world was like,
Poor Dean Wade had to pay for his teammates' misgivings there, malfeasance.
Well, let me ask you this, Eddie, since we're talking about the conference finals. Are the Knicks the unstoppable force in the East at this point?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a real even series. They have been hot. I mean, since the last 3 games of the Atlanta series, have they won 7 straight, right? And just annihilating people. But here's the thing.
You're right. 7 straight, yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns, you talk about another guy that's hard to like. Every drive is like the slow motion. Boom, his head snap and just bouncing, throwing up some slop at the rim. But the guy
pretty good imitation right there.
The ball goes in a lot. He's an amazing shooter, but
he is.
I think that Mobley and Jared Allen are going to have something to say about that. We're going to see him cool off. Cleveland's got good defenders. That's actually a really going to be a nice series. The one guy in the Knicks I like a lot is, OG Anunoby, but apparently he's got a hamstring issue, but he's been great. The last month he's been going crazy. He's like their solid guy. It's hard to deny his game. He brings toughness. He's a great defender. He needs to stay healthy. Apparently there are some whispers about his hamstring. If he goes out, definite advantage to Cleveland. And by the way, again, I got to go back to one more thing in the Cedar Point series. If you guys remember 2 weeks ago, I mentioned there's a guy in Cleveland. He's the dorkiest player in the league.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember who I was?
The backup center, right?
Yeah, Thomas Bryant.
Yeah, he barely played.
He played the last 4 minutes of Game 7. Did anyone stick around to watch?
I was going to bed.
I thought he played earlier in the series, too. But
The Twitterverse lit up. He went in there in 4 minutes. He shot 0 for 4. The ball was just like squirting out of his hand. He was missing layups. and everybody was just cracking up. All
like you said, nobody was watching at that point. Yeah,
he could have started for the Pistons in the series.
He would have fit in, But normally, I said this guy's the biggest dork in the league, except for one thing: he can shoot. That's why he's in the league. And then last night he went in there; it was all Butterfingers. I invite you after the show, go on X and go look up. Nobody has been talking about Thomas Bryant since then, so you can probably see all the comments that happened during those 4 minutes of action. But one other thing came up too about Thomas Bryant. 2 years ago, he was Jokic's backup, won a ring. Last year, he was Indiana's backup, and they went to Game 7. And now here he is with the Cavs. He's like a good luck charm.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Year 8, year 9, a real goofy looking guy too. And go look it up, man. I wish you could. I got league pass. I can go back and watch the game, but it was funny. It was funny. Everybody noticed.
It reminds me
my cohorts. I warned you guys about this guy.
When you were talking about Bryant, it reminded me of. Did you know that John Sally has 4 rings? 4. 2 with the Pistons, 1 with the Bulls, and 1 with the Lakers. 4 rings John Sally has. Talk about being at the right place at the right time. And baseball, Lonnie Smith was in the right place at the right time. Lonnie Smith played for 1 million champions, and he was was an average player. But he just happened everywhere he went. The teams would go to the World Series. It was uncanny.
I guess that adds ammunition to the fact that maybe rings are overrated.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question.
Yeah. We rate players, right? Karl Malone.
John Sally has 4, and Chuck and Charles Barkley has none. There you go.
Right there. Yeah.
But you're right, Siddy, when you said being a good soldier will take you a long way in the league. If people like you and you're good at one thing, you can steal back.
Who's the other one?
By the way,
wasn't there like Derek? Yeah. Was it Derek Fisher who was
Derek
on
Fisher.
That's another good one.
2 or 3 different championship teams?
Well, he was on those Laker teams. How many? I don't know. How many did they win? Kobe and Shaq. He was always part of
at least one, obviously.
What
was the other team he played for? Fisher.
Was it the Spurs?
I can't even remember. He had a very long career. I mean, he played more than 1,000 games easily. Yeah, I have trouble remembering.
Or is it Ron Harper? For some reason, I might be mixing up.
Ron Harper won them with Chicago.
Right.
And did he play with the Lakers after that? I don't remember.
Fisher played for the Lakers, of course, and then he went to the Warriors, Utah, back to the Lakers, OKC, Dallas, back to OKC. Fisher.
Oh, my God. I had no idea. No. How many games did he play?
He played almost 1,300.
Whew.
I know.
That's a lot. That's probably like top 15 all time.
Yeah, that's up there. Well, he played in 82 for 6 straight years.
Yeah.
6 straight years. That's not possible anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, it's in the Players Association contract, right?
Wow. I didn't know that either. Woof. Okay.
Well, anyway, that's so anyway, the championship NBA Finals starts tonight. You heard it here. Everyone knows. Whoever wins this series is going to win the title, unless guys get hurt. It's the only way it's not going to happen. So I hope. I think this one's worth tuning in for. Wemby against all these OKC guys. It'll be crazy.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Shea likes to drive. Shea likes to go to the rim. We'll see how he does with what does Wemby have a nickname yet?
I don't know.
Is he the Eiffel Tower? He needs a good nickname.
We talked about this before. They don't give players good nicknames anymore.
Yeah.
They try.
Yeah, I don't count shortening his name to Wemby as being a nickname. I don't count that as a nickname.
Yeah, that's like a hockey nickname.
Right.
All right.
Right. Exactly. That's
right.
funny.
Every player in NHL history's nickname is.
I just want before we let you go. I just want to pick your brain about the Pacers, and you say, why would you want to do that? Well. Do you think that they'll bounce back now that they'll be getting healthier next year? And what about Washington with Davis?
The league's looking to be really interesting next year because, let's start with Indy. Obviously, getting Halliburton back.
Right.
Mhm.
Halliburton's one of those guys that, all the gamblers knew when he goes out, you bet on the other team. He really seemed to have a huge major impact on outcomes. I would expect they're going to be ready to roll again next year. They did make this crazy trade, though, where before the deadline, they got the Clippers center. Their center before was Miles Turner,
right,
who became a free agent. They let him go. They didn't replace him, which contributed to their collapse this year.
Yeah.
They had two gigantic holes in their lineup. So then before the deadline, they traded for Ivica Zubac, who's like 30 years old, mid-career with the Clippers. Guy I like a lot. But, he's not, an aircraft carrier. He's just kind of a hammer in the center, kind of more like a Jared Allen kind of guy who dunks a lot, knocks people around, a little bigger than Allen, not as tall. But he can do some damage at the pivot, a nice guy to have. But they gave up so much. They gave up Ben Mathurin, who was the guy drafted after Jaden Ivey, a contributor, a bench scorer who helped them get to the finals last year. They traded their backup center, Isaiah Jackson. They traded this year's first, protected only 1 through 4. And
they ended up 5th in the lottery. Yep.
They landed on 5. And they gave up and they gave up, I think, another unprotected first down the road. It's like, what are you doing?
And the GM actually apologized to the fans online for the trade.
Yeah, he gambled. Why are you gambling? Why are you gambling? He was gambling. They were going to bring in Zubac and then get lucky and get a top 4 pick. And supposedly the top 4 picks are studs. So they're going to add 2 studs. And now they just added 1. They lost Ben Mathurin, great scorer. And I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine Indy returning to where they were. I mean, they'll be good, but they're going to be tough. They might win 50 games, but, they're not going to – I don't see them coming all the way back to where they were exactly. And then Washington's going to be interesting. They got Anthony Davis and Trae Young, and now the first pick. But the problem with them is they have like this motley collection of young guys who, I don't know, are any of them actually good?
Didn't they have like 4 first-round picks and none of them get any playing time right now? I mean, one draft.
They've been developing their guys. They've invested for like 2 years. They've been basically starting rookies and second-year guys. But it doesn't seem like any of them is going to there's no guarantee that any of them is more than just a rotation guy. So, they have, I'm not going to go through the names, but they got at least 8 or 9 guys they've been, investing time in. If like a couple of those guys were like ready to step forward, that would make them interesting. Now it's still a mismatched team. But the team to watch next year is going to be Utah. If there's one team I'm kind of irritated with, the team that did not deserve good luck, it was the Utah Jazz. They've been milking the system for 4 years, trying to be bad when they've always had like a 500 team, and they just refused to be a 500 team. And now they got their pick. They got the number 2 pick. They traded for Jaren Jackson Jr., who's excellent. He's going to be next to Markkanen, next to Walker Kessler. They're ready to fly. Utah is going to be better than Indy, But Utah was an example of why the NBA has needed to take such a radical step with the lottery, because they brought in Jaren Jackson, who's a stud, and him and Markkanen are playing next to each other, and they were winning some game, and then they sat both guys in the fourth quarter, so they lost. and the league fined them like $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then Markkanen got hurt in practice, so we never saw the injury. Hurt both his hip and his ankle or something. And then Jaren Jackson decided to have some surgery that really could have waited. And that's what teams are doing now. That's why the league can never win in dealing with the tanking, because they keep inventing ways, creative ways to circumvent, fair competition, right? Now they're having guys going in for surgery. Zubac with Indy too. He played like 3 games with Indy after playing every game with the Clippers. We're like, well, there's something in his elbow. We're going to go deal with it now. So the league had to take these radical steps in flattening out the lottery, if it passes the Board of Governors vote. But anyway, there are a lot of bad teams that are going to be good.
Will be interesting. Well, gentlemen, anything else before we let Siddy go, or are we done?
I don't know. I'm kind of tired of talking to him after 3 straight shows. So
screw you guys. I want a wardrobe. I want a wardrobe allowance. Finally.
I disagree with Al.
Yeah.
Well, I disagree with Al. I'd rather bring you back to talk more Pistons, because next time it's going to be Tigers.
Yeah, right.
Oh, the Tigers. Well, let's see what happens at the trade deadline. I don't think the draft is going to be exciting enough to have a show.
Right.
You guys can decide that, but, picking 21. But let's see what Trajan does in July.
Yeah, exactly. If they make a big swing, that's the time we talk to Siddy.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for having me on again.
Of course. Thanks for being here.
Oh, we love it. We love talking hoops with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good
Thank
stuff.
you very much.
Take care.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Thanks.
We'll see you.
Cheers.
All right.
All right, guys. It's just the 3 of us now. And pretty much as I'm using my tablet instead of a computer right now. There we go. Okay. So it's always fun talking to Siddy. Actually, as you can tell, I was joking about talking to him. I love talking to him.
Of course you were.
But it's right now it's going to be a fascinating offseason, but now it's pretty much a waiting game. Waiting for free agency to start, waiting for any possible trades.
Yeah.
And everything I've read, guys, that the Pistons will be a very aggressive team this offseason. It's just a matter, Siddy threw a bunch of names out there. We'll see if any of them end up in Detroit.
Right. Exactly.
All right. I guess with that, I think it's time to start wrapping things up. So you know what time that is. It's time for our Jerk of the Week. So, Nick, you get to fire off. Who's your Jerk of the Week?
Well, this one's a little bit of a twisted one. And my explanation is going to be twisted, not the Jerk of the Week.
Okay.
And I'm gonna switch gears and set my sights on hockey, and particularly the Detroit hockey media.
Okay.
And I'm going to do it a certain way. It's nothing that the Detroit media has done. It's what the Detroit media has not done.
Okay.
And I'm taking this because I love this story for some reason. The Toronto Maple Leafs in the last couple of weeks hired a new general manager.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I don't know, like an assistant manager. So this guy, Chaika or something like that. Is that his name? I don't know how to pronounce it. So he was formerly the general manager of the Arizona Coyotes, and and he did some kind of stupid stuff when he was there.
Yep.
So at the press conference introducing him as the general manager,
saw this,
one of the Toronto sports writers asked a real ballsy question. And the reason I call it ballsy is because nobody does it anymore.
Right.
And the guy's name he's been around a long time. I keep wanting to say Gene Simmons, but it's Steve Simmons.
Okay.
And he asked the president of the Maple Leafs, remember a guy's name, Pelly or something like that. I don't remember his name. He Simmons asked the questions like, look, I talked to like 20 people in the league, and 19 of them said that Chaika is like a con artist and a liar and all this other stuff, and then ask for comment.
And Chaika's sitting right there, of course.
He's sitting right there. Probably his family is sitting in the crowd.
I think about that, but you're right. Yeah.
And his parents proud of him. All of a sudden, and this hand grenade gets pulled and blown up over there, right? And the reason I like it is because
that's a good one.
It's a fair question.
Sure,
it's a fair question.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking, like, what would be a Detroit equivalent of this? It would have been the equivalent of the Detroit Tigers beat writers grilling Al Avila after hiring AJ Hinch because of why Hinch
because of the cheating thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the Red Wings have stunk for so long, and the Red Wings media does just not ask tough questions of the Red Wings at all. It's just like, you guys, like, shit the bed this year.
Yeah. And
you keep doing the same thing for the last 3 or 4 years, and the same thing happens during the season. Like, they should be grilling Yzerman at this point. Yeah. I know
I thought the questions were a little bit more fair, a little more pointed this year, but you're right. He's largely gotten a free pass. No question about it.
Right, and it took a long time for them to start asking these questions. I mean, it's been 7 years before they started asking this.
Right,
and so my kudos goes out to Steve Simmons for asking those questions.
Yeah,
it may have been a little bit of a prickly way of asking, but man, that was pulling no punches. That was bare knuckles.
Yeah, it was. And Simmons, you could tell. I saw that clip several times actually because I liked it so much. But one of the things that struck me about that clip was that Simmons himself. Now, I don't know the guy. I don't. Maybe this is the way he always talks, but he sounded really nervous asking the question. But I give him a lot of credit for asking the question. I don't know if you guys remember last week I wrote a piece about Pat Caputo, and I mentioned a lot of Detroit sports writers and personalities who we've lost at very young ages. One of them was Tom Killer Kowalski. And the thing I liked about Killer, he was on the Lions beat, of course. The thing I liked about Killer was that he would be the guy that could ask those kinds of questions. He was not a shill for the Lions whatsoever. Now, it didn't hurt that he worked for more of an independent company then. He didn't work for the two dailies. He worked for one of the independent people. But still, Killer was not above. And I think that's why the fans liked him so much, is because they felt like he was almost like their voice.
Yeah.
And you don't really have too many guys that are on the beat that you feel like are the fans' voice. And this Simmons guy, like, I don't know much about him. I looked at the comments of that clip, and there were some anti-Simmons people who I guess would know better than I would, who are from Toronto, who say this guy's a knucklehead. But regardless if he's a knucklehead or not, that question, like you said, Nick, was ballsy, whether it was a legit question or not. Was a very ballsy question to even bring up, and yeah, that was. You're absolutely right. I haven't seen anything like that in sports media in years. So I give that guy a lot of credit for sure.
Yeah, and it was also worth noting that the guy had been out of hockey like 5 or 6 years.
He was
because of what happened in Arizona.
Right.
So that's a good one there. Yeah.
And I looked at the comments too to see, like, pro and con, like, to Simmons's question. Most fans that I could tell, the fans were behind Simmons on this one.
Yeah.
Most of them were. Yeah. Yes.
And I only saw like a couple things, and I think these were other media people complaining, well, this is clickbait. This is, his family's in the audience. I'm like, shit, man, this guy's got a black eye to begin with as he's getting hired.
Yeah.
And when you hire any one of these guys, whether it's a manager, coach, front office people, you're stuck with this guy for usually too long.
Right.
And then if that doesn't work, they could be fired anywhere from 1 to 3 years, but then the clock resets again, and then
totally. And the Leafs are going on 60 years of since their last Stanley Cup. So
that's right. I mean, they weren't even in the finals for the last 60 years, let alone winning it. So
yeah, that's another good point. That's true. That's very true. So, yeah. So my jerk of the week, I'm going to kind of go a little bit. It's also hockey related, but it's way different than Nick's. And excuse me, this was an item that I saw, and I couldn't believe it. This is really, to me, kind of sad. And I'm not even sure what if the jerk here is Herb Brooks' family or what. But Herb Brooks, of course, coached the Miracle on Ice 1980 Olympic team. Herb passed away years ago. But anyway, his ring. Now, coaches don't get in the Olympics. Coaches don't get gold medals. They get medals. Period. They don't get medals. So the closest thing that Herb Brooks got for winning that gold medal in 1980 was a ring. It was they say it's a 10-karat gold ring. It's got 5 diamonds on it, and it's a really nice ring. And Herb died many years ago. Anyways, it was sold at an auction for $549,000. That's not the part that I'm mad about. The part that I'm mad about is the family of Brooks consigned this ring to this auction house. And I don't understand that. Now, it said that Brooks's brother, David, who was on the 1964 team, Olympic hockey team, bought the ring for $113,000, which I thought was odd as well. Why does he have to buy his own brother's ring? I thought that was weird. Why wouldn't that just be like something within the family? But regardless of that, but he, this David Brooks guy, consigned the ring to this Heritage auction house, who then sold it for $549,000. And I don't know. I just feel like there's something wrong about that. And I don't know. I can't put my finger on why I think that's wrong. But the fact that that's the only thing that Herb Brooks ever got for coaching that team to win the gold medal, and now after his death, you're going to sell his ring at an auction. I just don't think it's right. I don't get it. That's something to me that shouldn't see the light of day. That should be kept within the family. That's just me. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for all families, obviously, but I can't imagine a ring of that, something that means that much. I don't know how that got through the whole family, everybody in the family, quite frankly, that they would, that maybe this David Brooks was like the executor of Herb Brooks' estate or something. Maybe that this was his call to make, but to put that ring up for auction, it just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I haven't heard the story, so it's not like something where Herb Brooks's widow needs the money and the brother just sold it off.
It doesn't look like it's anything like that. No, it doesn't look like it's anything like that. What you're suggesting? No.
Okay.
It's just a straight out sell at an auction.
Yeah, there's all kinds of questions that we'll probably never get answered from that. That's a good one, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to get a slightly political, but just because this is such a bonkers thing that it actually went live today. It didn't stay alive for very long. But the Oklahoman, which is the newspaper out of Oklahoma City, posted an op-ed today, and the title was, "Like Thunder, Israel is an underdog that has become hated." Literally. And the op-ed thing is essentially comparing the Thunder to the nation of Israel.
So how do you make that distinction?
Yeah, and essentially it's, they're these little underdog team, underdog nation, and now no one likes them.
The little country that could.
Who does? The only thing people don't like about the Thunder is SGA's flopping. Period. Yeah. That's pretty much all it is.
How are they an underdog? How is the Thunder an underdog? That's the other thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, because they're in Oklahoma City. They're not like Chicago or LA or that was in the article or New York. No, they're not a destination town, so to speak. But to compare them to Israel and what's going on over there right now, I mean, you're comparing a team that people hates the flopping to a country that's committed genocide and bulldozed Gaza, for Christ's sake. And the fact that they felt the need to actually put it in their paper, and it goes on from there. And it was so bad that the Oklahoman actually pulled it. They took it offline because the reaction to it obviously was out there. Like, what are you thinking? But the problem is they couldn't kill it completely because it hit syndication, like MSN and all those other places. Yeah. Right. So it's still out there if you want to read it. But it's absolutely bonkers comparison, comparing an NBA team to Israel, which is one of the most dumbest things I've ever seen. And as much as I want to yell at the author for this,
Yeah.
I want to yell at the people, the Oklahomans, thinking, why did you think this was a good thing to print?
Yeah.
So that's my jerk of the week. The Oklahomans.
Wow. How'd you find out about that one?
It was an awful announcing today.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Awful announcing was all over it. And it has some
that's a good account.
Yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah. And it was like, and Oklahoma has not released any kind of statement about it. They just hold it. But to think that you can even remotely compare the two things is actually one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. So that's my jerk of the week. Amazing, to say the least.
That's impressive.
All right. Yeah. So, if you want to learn more about it, just go to Awful Announcing. It's on the front page at Awful Announcing right now. All right.
Okay.
I guess before we get out of here, Greg, the floor is yours to get out the thank yous and the social media and anything else we might have coming up.
Sure. Thanks to Siddy Hall, obviously. Good basketball discussion. Never gets old. Can't wait to have him back already. Follow me on Twitter on X, at Greg Eno. Follow the Knee Jerks as well, at the Knee Jerks. Please subscribe to my Substack, gregeno.substack.com. I'll be in your inbox every Monday, and I would appreciate that. I want to thank my lovely wife, Sharon, for putting up with this nonsense every 2 weeks. And thank you, gentlemen, for making Monday nights so gosh darn fun.
Oh, and one thing I almost forgot before I get to Nick. Greg, I also want to give you a shout out for writing about Pat Caputo.
Thank you.
He passed away last week, and we probably should say a little something about him because he was literally one of a cornerstone in this era in Detroit sports for like 40 years, and he recently passed away from cancer. That literally just pretty much took him like 4 or 5 about 4 months or so. He went off the air. I think late last year, and he passed away last week. And say what you will about Pat, I didn't always agree with his takes,
right?
But he knew what he was talking about, and I don't think there was a guy in Detroit who knew more about baseball than he did.
Yeah, that's true. Good.
So go back. You guys need to subscribe to Nick's to Greg's Substack so you can read this stuff. So please do. So all right, Nick. You can tell everybody what's going on with you online and all that fun stuff.
Right on. If you want to talk with me, go back and forth on sports. I'm on Twitter at Nick Milanovich. And if you want to see what I do outside of sports, I'm on Instagram at Cat Up a Tree. All
right. And as always, I want to thank you for you guys for putting up these shenanigans every couple weeks, especially when I'm back up in the woods of northern Michigan. I'm up in Traverse City again. So it's kind of a pain in the butt to put it together, especially I didn't find a laptop this time. So I do appreciate you guys kind of putting up with the headaches of me working when I'm up here. But regardless of that, we do appreciate our listeners, and we would love it if you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can find us pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, but the most popular places are, of course, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, Deezer, Radio Public. Like I said, go to your favorite podcast aggregator, look up the Knee Jerks, look up the Knee Jerks, Eno, Nick, and Big Al. Any variation of that, and you will find the show. Please subscribe and download it. Our homepage is thekneejerks.net. All the information when it comes to social media, things we talk about, all that stuff will be at our homepage, the show notes, all that. And, of course, we live stream video of every show as we're live streaming right now to YouTube and Twitch. Again, just search for our name, the Knee Jerks Podcast on YouTube or Twitch, and you can subscribe from there. All right, I think it's time to get the hell out of here. So we'll be back. Maybe in 2 weeks. I'm going to be in Florida, so we'll have to figure that out. So here, you see, it's that time of year where I'm on the road all the time again. So until probably 2 weeks from now, we'll talk about it. This is Al Beaton saying good evening, good night, and aloha, along with Nick Milanovich.
Good night, guys.
And, of course, our resident author, Greg Eno.
Charlie, we'll see you in hopefully 2 weeks.
All right.